Hello everyone, this is Monika Dulian and Alison Kate coming in with episode 4 of the Bloated World, where we discuss what is underneath our perpetual need to do more, have more, eat more, consume more, collect more, and do just that one more thing to feel some kind of peace within ourselves. And today we will be talking about the mind-body connection and how the mind is playing a role in creating that peace and what stories are running in there, making you want to do more. What is it that we're telling ourselves? What ideas are there in our mind that we are maybe not even consciously paying attention to, but there are a lot of the times constantly running, making us achieve. So Alison, would you like to introduce us to this topic today?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. I can't believe we're already on episode 4. This is so exciting. So today we're going to be diving into the mind, like Monika shared, and all of this overdoing, over how our thoughts are constantly cycling. And as much as bloating and as much as overdoing causes stress, we are also not comfortable on some level with the stillness and the silence and this concept of letting everything fall away so we can be present and be with ourselves. So I feel like a lot of us, especially type A personalities, are in this constant struggle of wanting more peace, wanting more relaxation, and then this monkey chattering mind driving us forward to never relax and never rest.
When you were telling that, I imagined myself doing dishes, and there is this concept, use this time for meditation, feel the water, and be fully here. No, I am running a full-blown conversation in my head. I have a ton of things to complete, and I am doing 2-3 things at once, which we know is impossible. It's just switching your attention to so many different things and makes me feel exhausted, makes me feel drained. And when I catch myself do it, I try to feel what is it that I am more uncomfortable with, doing too much or not doing anything at all. And what is interesting, not doing anything at all and resting, fully resting, not even reading when I'm resting, just closing my eyes and being with myself sometimes feels uncomfortable. Can you tell us a little bit more about why people feel uncomfortable being still?
Yeah, and I will add that, like you shared, so many people know that they're not necessarily, that they're uncomfortable with the overstress, all the stress that we suffer from, but they haven't actually considered how uncomfortable they are with the nothingness. And many years ago, I wrote an article, like the art of doing nothing, because that was such a new concept to me of like, I had heard this other person talk about, doing nothing doesn't mean laying in bed and reading a book or listening to music or listening to a podcast, because that was my version of nothing, because it's not doing something quote unquote productive that will get a goal forward, or, that was just for enjoyment. But separate from enjoyment and pleasure, which is wonderful, this concept of doing nothing literally means like laying or sitting down, looking at the white wall and doing nothing and seeing what arises and seeing how the thoughts in our mind shift as we do that, like watching the story that unfolds as we sit with that nothingness. So I like to use the analogy of like opposite extremes. So I think that a lot of the overing in our world, like Monika mentioned, overdoing, overthinking, over shopping, overeating, is because of the opposite, a deficit, a lack of something, the not enoughness, a feeling insecure in some way, a lack in confidence. And so we're, in a sense, using all of those things to prove our worthiness, like shopping to prove that we are financially stable or have material things that support us, or overeating to soothe like an inner emptiness, or overachieving so that we prove outside success or validation from the world, because we're suffering from such a lack of that own validation for our own experience.
I can only imagine those people waiting in traffic not wanting to even be there still for a little bit until the lights change, automatically phone and checking the phone. So they're not really present with what's going on. We are on autopilot a lot. And as you mentioned, the autopilot thoughts, what thoughts are running in there, and how overdoing can also make us feel safer because we are not still noticing things that needs to be noticed.
Yeah.
How can we start building this trust, this practice of doing nothing?
Well, I'll just back up for 1 minute. I'll add too that in our worlds of like so much overstimulation, what especially for our generation where we didn't have cell phones when we were so little and all of that, that it's like our brains were somewhat used to that space or that stillness in between. But in an overstimulated technology world, which is great in so many ways, we don't have those pauses. They don't feel natural anymore. And so whereas like, you know, in between watching something or as you get up to go to the bathroom or anything, you're just with yourself. We might be playing something in the background, or we might pick up our phone in between, you know, 2 different work meetings, instead of just having that 5 minutes to regroup and be with ourselves, to breathe, to notice what's present. We're just like checking something else that pulls us out of the moment to be with ourselves. So, and I will also add that I am really guilty of, or have been guilty of, listening to things at a higher speed. So instead of listening to it, you know, on the podcast, there's a way to change it to like 1.25 or 1.5 speed. And even when you get used to listening to things in a sped up version, listening to something normal almost seems too slow. And it's just all of this conditioning to our brain. Some of it is like growing up conditioning, and others of it is habits that we create for ourselves, which we just are adding to our stretch and this bloated overstimulation that our nervous system, as a human live thing and not a technological being, is not wired to handle.
Oh my gosh. That immediately put me into questioning whether or not in 50, 100 years we will consider this a generational trauma.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, even my brother, who's 5 years younger than me, who did have a cell phone in years that I didn't, we have a very different relationship in that way. And I see younger kids today, and it makes me feel old, but I'm also really grateful to have been on the cusp of that, sort of going into the internet and technological age where we have access to it all the time, and still knowing that there's a choice to engage or not engage. It's not just naturally built in.
Yes, because we have experienced that. What you said, the last few words, knowing that there is another option, having that awareness. So as we know, kids are following our example, right? So how can we start doing this in our lives where we are intentionally slowing down for the purpose of expanding awareness, building the sensation of peace or relief, really noticing that we are living, even knowing that the time is passing, noticing that life is happening instead of always being 5 seconds ahead.
Yeah, so I think that's just like a good practice to dive into exploring the discomfort with the opposite of what we're experiencing, a little bit like we've introduced already, that, you know, we know we're uncomfortable when our body is physically bloated, or our mind is going a mile a minute, or we suffer from insomnia because we can't sleep because our thoughts are going nonstop. And we know what that suffering is like because we live it, and it's more obvious. But we aren't in touch with the suffering of letting that all fall away, and then what's really there, because we might have this misconception that it's a peaceful place. But for most people, especially the way we're conditioned to overdo and achieve and check off all the boxes, like that's not a comfortable place. And so we subconsciously avoid it over and over and over and create this perpetual suffering in the way that we're more used to experiencing it in the overness.
Yeah. And I am sure there might be viewers right now who are thinking, what do you mean I'm uncomfortable being still? This is all I want in my life. Just leave me alone, people. I want to have vacations and not do anything. I'm not going to even take my book And I am sure you're going to take us through an exercise to really experience the feeling of being uncomfortable, being still. What is that we are avoiding? Because with that awareness, then we can start doing something about it.
Yeah, let's do that now. So we'll take 5 minutes and do an exercise together, because it's true. Like, how many people say, oh, I wish I could just like crawl into a hole, or just like be in my bed and with the covers over my head. But then if we actually would love that, why do we never do it? Or why is a vacation only a once a year or every 3 years kind of thing? So let's explore that together. So this is just a short hypnosis exercise, which is like, you know, we're only taking a couple of minutes here, so we're not going deep into trance, but I would invite you to close your eyes with me. And even just the practice of closing your eyes shuts down some of your senses and allows you to go within yourself deeper. And you can perhaps even imagine taking your conscious awareness from your thinking mind and moving it down into your heart space or somewhere lower down, so that you're more connected to the body for this exploration. And now, like, you could imagine seeing or feeling the experience, seeing like you're watching it on a movie screen, or living it like you're being in the experience of it now. What it feels like with all the different components you have in your life. Work, relationships, maybe kids, maybe other relationships, other responsibilities, all of the activities that you're involved in, all your hopes and dreams, all the side projects you have going on, and everything you do for fun and pleasure, and just how busy and robust that can feel sometimes, and sometimes how overwhelming and stressful it can feel sometimes, because everything is so scheduled. And as you tune in with that energy of all this overing, I want you to imagine what would happen if that all fell away. All of those little pieces, like they drop off the face of the earth into little dots and disappear all around you. And perhaps it's like you're sitting in blackness or in whiteness, but some monotone, nothing experience. And notice what's there. Notice what thoughts or feelings you might have as you feel everything you care about, everything you hope for yourself, falls away and disappears. Like if all you had was this moment and there was nothing to do, nothing to ever hope for or strive for. And you might even notice some conflict inside of yourself now, these different parts of us. Maybe some part of you does feel relaxed and enjoying of that experience. And another part of you might feel really agitated or empty or even hopeless without your sense of purpose, without this drive forward. And just notice what's there. And as you notice and you really fully acknowledge what's there and what you might have to work with in a longer, deeper practice later on, just to allow your subconscious mind to change the script a little bit in this internal exploration or experiment, you can ask yourself, who would I be if there was nothing to fix or do? Who am I when I'm not trying to make anything better? Who am I in this silent and still place? And taking 3 deep breaths to seal that in, to perhaps come to slight resolution or peace with that pause, with that not needing to do anything. And then when you feel ready, you can slowly blink your eyes open and come back. So I'd invite you all to share in the comments what you experienced, when you do a short practice like that, just to get more information. Sometimes people have a quicker resolution or some interesting new revelations, and other people it gets more intense because they've uncovered something under the surface that they weren't in touch with, and that's an invitation to go deeper then. Monika, is there anything you want to share with us?
At the beginning, I was grabbing the last shreds of things to do. So like, I might use this sentence in the description of the video, and just like, I don't want to go. And then when there was just blackness and nothing to do, nothing to fix. You mentioned part of me relaxing into this, part of me fighting. I could really feel the split down the middle, left side relaxing and the right side wanting to do. And at the end, what came to my mind is a tool that cannot be utilized. It's almost like the sense of purpose is very closely attached to action, to achieving. And if I cannot do, act, achieve, fix, do anything, then what is my purpose? And how am I going to be utilized here in this? I need to be needed.
Yeah.
And that can be an uncomfortable thought to have. And it clearly showed me where myself and many other people might be feeling uncomfortable taking time to do nothing. Because then they might be feeling unworthy.
Yeah, and I thank you for sharing that. I know I have a similar experience of this conflict where when I go to that place and there's discomfort at first, and then when I let that fall away and I'm in that nothingness place, it feels really good truly. But then when I bring myself back and I reconnect with the world, it's all there. So for me, the challenge now where I am in this stage is like integrating that peaceful place of meditation into the world, because I don't want to be different people in those different parts of me or versions of me. And I can also share when this pandemic first hit and things were slowing down, that I was having these like bursts of ideas and new inspirations and ideas for projects, and all these things were coming to me. And part of me was excited, and another part of me was feeling overwhelmed by even knowing how to get those things off the ground, and that would take time and a lot of work and effort. And also aware another part of me was being called to rest and be in that energy with everyone. And so I had the awareness enough at that point to say, okay, these good ideas, I can write them down, and they're still going to be here in 3 months or 6 months when I may have more energy for this. But I also acknowledge that this may just be a symptom of my mind wanting to recreate or create new tasks or to-do lists or projects that continue the sort of stress overworking cycle. And I'm not willing to engage in that right now because I don't really think it's healthy for me. So that was a really big winning moment for me when I was able to kind of acknowledge that was the mind in some respect, and let it go, put it on pause, let it be there to come back to. Yeah.
This is a very interesting point to really mention here, because I am sure that many of our viewers had this initial panic state. I can't do. I am forbidden from going ahead and doing, especially if you're someone, let's say a massage therapist. You are on mandatory sit on your bum in a house. What do you do? Right? And I wanted to ask you for maybe something to give our viewers to do, because this might be a new thing to so many people. arriving on this realization that I am believing something about myself or about my worth, my identity, when I cannot fix, cannot make better, when I don't overdo. The bloatedness goes away, and underneath that, there might be a sense of emptiness. What do we do then? Do we engage with those thoughts and start to argue with them? Do we just witness them? What would be the practice, additional practice after gaining awareness of that uncomfortable place in us when we're still?
Yeah, I have a couple ideas. One is to sort of connect with one part of you that you know is like a centering place for you. Like for me, that's often my heart, but for other people, it might be other places of their body where when I'm feeling insecure or lacking confidence or stressed or like I need to prove myself, to try to drop out of my mind and down into my heart and try to make a different decision from there, or at least reassess from there. I agree that being a witness to the thoughts can be a great place to start, like we've been talking about in several of these episodes, because you have to have the awareness there to even begin to change the habit. On a more practical standpoint, I would say, anytime you add something to your to-do list, in a sense, or anytime you get a new thought or idea, or anytime you feel like you need to do just this one more thing, before you write it down or before you add it to the list, ask yourself why. Like ask yourself, what's really the intention or the purpose behind this being a priority or something that needs to get done today or this week or any of that, because we all have hopes and dreams that we want to achieve, and we will achieve the things that are most important to us quicker if we let the stuff that's really just the chaos and the chatter in between fall away. Like I know for me, I'm really guilty of when I want to make a good decision, I'll do a ton of research about it. And even if my intuition tells me I have the right answer after 5 or 10 minutes, I'll continue to do another 20 or 30 minutes of research to make sure I checked out all the options, where if I was really just tuned in and listening to myself, I would know that I don't need to spend that extra time. And so to really question, like, why am I doing what I'm doing when my to-do list is more than just being present? Does that make sense?
Yes, and that reminded me, this weekend I have been tuning out and relaxing, and I have been watching a movie called Tremors. Maybe you remember this movie from, I think it was first released in the 80s or 90s. And there's like 5 different episodes of that. So these people were dealing with these giant worms attacking a village. And I remember very, very vividly a sentence that was said in that movie in that moment when there's just these animals trying to destroy the village. Someone said this: do not let the urgent things get in the way of things that are important. And that made me think, because in the past, I would put an equal sign between urgency and importance.
Yeah.
And now I understand that there is a difference. And even a movie like that, a little bit of wisdom was given. And I wanted to thank you for guiding us through this to really start noticing even the possibility of that being true.
And I'll also add to, from my experience, that a lot of type A's or overdoers have the tendency to want to do everything themselves and have a hard time receiving. And in order to really focus on what's important and not all those urgent, like little crises or anything that needs attention, can we ask for help? Can we delegate? Can we let some stuff go? And the ego can deal with that so that we can truly focus on what means something to our personal evolution, like who we're growing into, who we want to become, who we want to become, and what are our top priorities from the soul level, not from the mind level.
Yes, that makes me feel hopeful, and that makes me feel open. And I'm going to add just one last thing here, that creating that place in ourselves, the place of awareness, at the beginning might feel like looking in the mirror and seeing an ugly reflection, but that is just the dust on the mirror. That is just the stories we have been telling ourselves. That they feel true to us, they are valid, but it's good to clean them out because our life is important. How we live, the quality of our lives, not how much we achieved.
Yes.
So,
Beautiful.
beautiful interview.
Yes. Perfect last words.
Yes. Okay, so for everyone that is joining us for the first time, maybe, my name is Monika Dulian. I am a healing facilitator at Always the Heart, helping you heal the psychosomatic root causes of your symptoms, problems, and ailments. And Alison is...
And I'm a hypnotherapist, healer, and yoga and meditation teacher. And I use a holistic approach, addressing the body, mind, and energy or spirit body for more effective and transformational results. So that's a more encompassing approach.
Exactly. And if you guys are interested in working with us, having us guide you and facilitate you, we have been there. So the easiest way to get from point A to point B is getting on a speed train, and hiring a mentor, hiring someone to help you get there is one of the best investments you can do for yourselves. So the contact information will be down below. You can contact us to help you find that peace in you.
Perfect.
Thank
you. Thank you all for joining us.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.